Women over 60. Number one body language expert says men find this irresistible, and most women never do it. Body language experts have studied attraction for decades, analyzing thousands of interactions to understand what creates magnetic pull between people. And there's one behavior that consistently shows up in women men find irresistible. Something so simple that most women overlook it completely, assuming attraction at our age requires something more complicated, more effortful, more about compensating for time rather than embodying confidence. The irony is that this behavior has nothing to do with looking younger or fitting some narrow definition of desirable. It's not about the right clothes or makeup or whether you've kept a certain figure. It's about how you occupy space, how you move through the world, the silent messages your body sends before you've spoken a single word. And most women over 60 have completely abandoned this behavior, convinced that invisibility is inevitable, that taking up space is somehow inappropriate at our age. Coco Chanel understood this when she said, "Beauty begins the moment you decide to be yourself." What body language experts have discovered is that attraction begins the moment you decide to be fully present in your own body, unapologetically visible, taking up exactly the space you deserve. At 60 and beyond, we've earned the right to stop shrinking, stop apologizing with our posture, stop moving through rooms like we're hoping no one will notice we're there. The body language that men find irresistible isn't about seduction or performance. It's about presence. And it's something most women have forgotten how to embody. If you're ready to understand what truly creates attraction at this age, you're in the right place. This channel is dedicated to helping women reclaim their power, their presence, and their confidence at every stage of life. Consider subscribing if you want practical wisdom that actually works, not empty platitudes about aging gracefully. We're building a community of women who refuse to disappear. The irresistible body language. Taking up space unapologetically. The number one thing body language experts say men find irresistible, the behavior most women over 60 never do, is this: taking up space without apology. Not shrinking yourself to fit into corners, not making yourself smaller when you enter a room, not crossing your arms over your body or hunching your shoulders forward as if you're trying to minimize your presence. It's standing fully, sitting openly, moving through space like you have every right to be there. When body language expert Dr. Amy Cuddy studied power poses and presence, she found that how we hold our bodies doesn't just communicate to others, it communicates to ourselves. Women who take up space feel more confident, and that confidence radiates outward in ways that have nothing to do with conventional attractiveness. Men pick up on this presence immediately, even if they can't articulate what they're responding to. Eleanor learned this at 64 during a community event. She'd spent years making herself small, literally pulling her arms in close, taking up as little room as possible at tables, standing slightly behind others in group conversations. Then a friend who taught theater pulled her aside and said, "You're apologizing with your entire body. Stop collapsing inward. Stand like you own the room." It felt absurd at first, even performative, but Eleanor started practicing, standing with her shoulders back, letting her arms hang naturally at her sides instead of crossing them protectively, sitting without making herself compact. Within weeks, she noticed men responding differently. Not leering or inappropriate attention, but genuine interest. They approached her at gatherings. They asked her opinions. They seemed to actually see her in a way they hadn't before. What changed wasn't her appearance, it was her presence. She was taking up space, and that space-claiming behavior signaled confidence, self-worth, the kind of groundedness that draws people in rather than repelling them. Why most women over 60 have abandoned this behavior. Somewhere along the way, most of us learned to make ourselves smaller,
We absorbed messages that taking up space was aggressive, unfeminine, inappropriate, especially as we aged. We learned to defer, to step aside, to minimize our physical presence as if visibility itself was something to apologize for. We hunched over to hide bodies that no longer matched some imagined ideal. We crossed our arms to protect ourselves from judgment. We moved quickly through spaces, trying not to draw attention. Patricia realized she'd been doing this for years without conscious thought. At social gatherings, she automatically positioned herself at the edges of rooms. She sat with her legs crossed tightly, arms folded, shoulders curved inward. She walked quickly with her head slightly down, as if she were trying to get from one place to another without being noticed. She thought she was being polite, unobtrusive, appropriately humble for a woman her age. What she didn't realize was that her body language was screaming invisibility, communicating that she didn't believe she deserved to be seen, that her presence was something to minimize rather than own. And men responded accordingly, by not responding at all. She'd made herself so small that she had essentially disappeared, and you cannot attract what cannot see you. This happens to so many women after 60. We've internalized decades of messages about taking less space, being less demanding, making room for others. We've apologized with our bodies for so long that we don't even realize we're doing it. And then we wonder why men don't notice us, why we feel invisible, why attraction seems like something that belongs to a younger version of ourselves.
The body language that communicates confidence doesn't mean being loud or dominating conversations or physically imposing yourself on others. It means embodying the quiet confidence that you have every right to be exactly where you are, occupying your full presence without apology. When Susan started consciously changing her body language at 68, she focused on 3 specific behaviors. Standing fully upright, with shoulders back. Not military rigid, but naturally tall, as if a string were gently pulling the crown of her head toward the ceiling. This single shift changed how people perceived her immediately. She looked confident, grounded, present. Sitting without collapsing inward. She stopped crossing her arms protectively over her chest, stopped making herself as compact as possible in chairs. She sat with her back straight, arms resting naturally, taking up the space the chair offered without apologizing for it. The response was immediate. At a dinner party 2 weeks into this practice, a man she'd known casually for years approached her and said, "There's something different about you. You seem more present somehow." He couldn't identify what had changed, but he felt it. That presence, that embodied confidence, created attraction in a way no amount of careful grooming or strategic conversation could manufacture. If this resonates with you, share in the comments. Have you noticed yourself shrinking your body language as you've gotten older? The science behind why this works. Body language experts have found that expansive postures, taking up space rather than collapsing inward, trigger both physiological and psychological changes. When you stand tall and open, your testosterone levels increase and cortisol levels decrease. You literally feel more confident, more powerful, less stressed. And that internal shift radiates outward in subtle ways that others pick up on unconsciously. Men are attracted to confidence at any age, but especially after 60, when so many women have abandoned it. When you move through the world with embodied presence, you stand out not because you're trying to attract attention, but because you're occupying your full self. You're not performing confidence, you're living it. And that authenticity is magnetic. Dr. Cuddy's research also found that this isn't about faking it. It's about changing your internal state through your physical body, which then changes how you show up in the world. Women who practice expansive body language for just 2 minutes before social situations report feeling more confident, more comfortable, more willing to engage.
And men respond to that ease, that groundedness, that sense that you're comfortable in your own skin. Margaret had always dismissed body language as superficial, something that mattered for job interviews maybe, but not for actual human connection. Then she tried it. 2 minutes of standing in a power pose before a community gathering, consciously keeping her posture open throughout the evening, and she was stunned by the difference. Men approached her who'd never approached her before. Conversations felt easier, more natural. She wasn't doing anything differently with her words, but her body was communicating something entirely new, that she was worth engaging with, worth seeing, worth approaching.
The subtle behaviors that undermine presence. Even women who understand the importance of body language often sabotage themselves with subtle behaviors they don't realize they're doing. Apologetic gestures, touching your neck or face repeatedly, fidgeting with jewelry or clothing, constantly adjusting yourself. All of these communicate nervousness and lack of confidence. They say you're uncomfortable in your own body, and discomfort isn't attractive. Protective postures. Crossing arms over your chest, hugging your purse to your body, positioning yourself behind furniture or other people. These all communicate that you're guarding yourself, that you don't feel safe being fully visible. Linda caught herself doing all of these during a weekend workshop. Every time she stood, she immediately crossed her arms. When she sat, she made herself as small as possible. When she walked, she hurried. She was apologizing for her existence with every movement, and the recognition was painful. No wonder men didn't notice her. She was actively trying not to be noticed. She spent the next month consciously changing these patterns, keeping her arms at her sides or gesturing naturally when she talked, sitting fully in chairs without collapsing inward, moving at a normal pace rather than rushing, standing in the middle of conversations rather than at the edges. It felt uncomfortable at first, almost rebellious, like she was taking up more than her fair share. But gradually, it started to feel natural, and the responses she got confirmed she was on the right track.
Reclaiming your physical presence. If you've spent years making yourself small, reclaiming your full physical presence requires conscious practice. It won't feel natural immediately. Decades of shrinking don't reverse overnight. But body language changes faster than almost anything else about how you show up in the world, and the results are immediate. Start with awareness. Notice when you cross your arms protectively. Notice when you make yourself compact in chairs. Notice when you hunch your shoulders forward or drop your gaze when walking. Just noticing these patterns without judgment is the first step. Then, practice the opposite. Stand tall. Sit openly. Move through spaces with purpose. Make eye contact. Take up the room you're offered without apologizing for it. Do this even when it feels uncomfortable, especially when it feels uncomfortable, because that discomfort is just unfamiliarity, your body learning a new way of being. Ruth practiced this for 30 days, consciously changing her body language in every social situation. By the end of the month, a man at her book club, someone who'd been attending for 2 years and had never said more than "hello," asked her to coffee. When she asked what had prompted it, he said honestly, "You just seem different lately. More sure of yourself. It's attractive." That sureness came entirely from how she was holding her body. Nothing else had changed. But by taking up space unapologetically, she'd communicated something fundamental, that she valued herself, that she believed she deserved to be seen, and that confidence made her irresistible in ways that had nothing to do with age or conventional beauty. The body language that men find irresistible, the behavior most women over 60 never do, is simple. Taking up space unapologetically, standing fully upright, sitting openly, moving through the world with the quiet confidence that you have every right to be exactly where you are. It's not about performance or seduction. It's about presence, about refusing to apologize for your existence with every movement. At this stage of life, you've earned the right to stop shrinking. You've earned the right to stand tall, to occupy your full presence, to move through spaces like you belong there, because you do. The invisibility so many women experience after 60 isn't inevitable. It's a choice we make with our bodies every time we collapse inward, cross our arms protectively, hurry through rooms hoping not to be noticed. Reclaim your space. Stand in your full height. Sit without making yourself compact. Move with purpose. Let your body communicate what you know to be true, that you are valuable, that you deserve to be seen, that your presence adds something to every room you enter. That embodied confidence is magnetic, and it has nothing to do with age and everything to do with how you choose to show up. If this conversation gave you something to practice, I'd be grateful if you'd subscribe and join our community of women who are reclaiming their presence and power at every age. We're having real conversations here about what actually works, not what we wish were true. Until next time, stand tall, take up your space, and let your body communicate the confidence you've earned through decades of living.